What's up, everybody? J Heat Sports Media coming at y'all again with that fire as always, spitting the hot topics and getting the sports conversation started. Y'all know what I'm talking about: football, basketball, and boxing. We still on the NFL greatest 25, the 25 greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. We down to number 13. Let's get into it. All right, so back to the list of the top quarterbacks in NFL history. Like I said, we're at number 13. This is where the list gets a little funny. Now, what I mean by that is all of these quarterbacks moving forward, you could probably find somebody, depending on their age and their knowledge of the game, that would tell you these guys are the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time. Problem is, I got 13 of them. So obviously, they can't all be top 10. So I got to get nitpicky now. I got to, nitpick, separate the best from the best of the best, and just give you what my opinion is on the top 13 from this point on. At number 13, we're going to go with Drew Brees. Drew Brees, not too long ago, just retired from the NFL. Everybody watching this video, I'm sure, knows who Drew Brees is. He was a phenomenal football player, phenomenal quarterback. What I think is most interesting about Drew Brees, he's the greatest quarterback 6 feet and under that there's ever been, in my opinion, because the rest of my list, all these guys are above 6 feet. Drew Brees benefited definitely from playing in a dome in New Orleans, where he had one of the best home court, or home field rather, advantages in the National Football League, in the history of the National Football League. He didn't quite do as well in away games, but at home they were always stellar. But he was a winner nonetheless throughout his career. Drew Brees led the league in yards for a season 7 times in his career. That's crazy. When he retired, he was the all-time leader in yards, if I'm not mistaken. He used to get 5,000 yards in a season more regularly than anyone. He was a standard setter. And he benefited having Sean Payton as a coach who would design the offensive plays where the offensive line would create pockets for him because he was only 6 feet tall and they had to open those lanes for him. But nevertheless, he had a pretty ball. He was very, very accurate, retiring with the highest completion percentage of any quarterback for their career at 67%. 67.7 if I'm not mistaken. A 5-time All-Pro. And his best year of his career, probably in his opinion, was the year he won the Super Bowl MVP. Outstanding year they had. Drew had a pretty solid defense that he used to have at his disposal. Decent running game. Had some wideouts, not the greatest wideouts ever, but he had some weapons, and he was the engine of the team. Why is he only 13 and not top 10 on my list? Well, he only made it to the Super Bowl 1 time in his career. He never won league MVP. Now, he played during a time where there were other guys that were just outright better than him, and we'll talk about those guys as we move on. But I have to hold it against him that he never was a league MVP in a league where the MVP is a quarterback award, and mostly quarterbacks won it, and he was the best of the best and never was good enough in any year. He didn't get robbed. He just wasn't the MVP any of those years. So that's that. 13-time Pro Bowler. I can keep going. Drew Brees was that dude. Above him at number 12, Dan Marino, Miami Dolphins. A lot of people would say Dan Marino is the best pure passer to ever play football. He could throw that thing with just a flick of his wrist 50, 60 yards down the field on a tightrope, not lobbing it up over, but straight shot at people. Type of quarterback, when he hit you with the football, people would say, some of his receivers would say the ball would hit him in the chest and get stuck in their chest and then fall in their hands. That type of quarterback. He hurt a few of his receivers' hands with how fast he was throwing that football. Dan was a technician. He retired with the all-time lead in touchdowns thrown, breaking Frank Tarkenton's record, guy I talked about earlier in my videos. Dan broke his record and held it not quite as long as Frank, if I'm not mistaken, but he had the record nonetheless. He was a league MVP, came out the gate with the league MVP within his first few years in the league, and was seen as a guy that might go down as the greatest quarterback of all time. But again, nitpicking, he never got back to the Super Bowl. Now, yeah, he didn't have the greatest defense. He didn't have a running game. He had some receivers, though. And regardless, not even getting back to the Super Bowl is a thing I got to hold against him. Now, he was a 6-time All-Pro. Unlike Drew Brees, he was a 6-time All-Pro. 3 of those was first team, which means he was the best quarterback in the league based on performance 3 years of his career, and that's stellar. Only reason he didn't have more MVPs is because there was running backs who stole that award from him during his time. But Dan Marino, if he had a Super Bowl ring, maybe 2, he'd be in my top 10, maybe even be approaching top 5 status. That's how good of a quarterback he was from a skill perspective. Nonetheless, my number 12, moving on to number 11, got to pay homage one more time. We're going to go back to the 50s and 60s. We're going to talk about Bart Starr, the quarterback that played for the Green Bay Packers. Storied franchise. He played for the great Vince Lombardi, who the Super Bowl trophy is named after. Lombardi was known for winning, and one of the reasons he was known for winning is because he had Bart Starr. 5-time champion. He won 2 Super Bowls, the first Super Bowls in NFL history. The first 2 went to Bart Starr, but before that, he was already a 3-time champion. He showed that was legit when the merger occurred and they still won 2 Super Bowls. He was a league MVP, an All-Pro. Bart Starr checked all the boxes. Can't leave him off this list. Some of those credentials are worthy of top 10, but because of the evolution of the game and when he played, I'm not quite going to put him in the top 10 because he wasn't like revolutionary to the game in terms of his skill set or anything like that, but he was the ultimate winner. And like I said, a league MVP. So I got him at number 11 on my all-time list. For those old heads out there, I know y'all probably got him higher, but that's where he is. Number 10 on my list, and the end of this particular video, is a quarterback that was a dual threat quarterback. I talked about at the beginning of my videos, Randall Cunningham being the ultimate dual threat quarterback. Well, Steve Young was one of the best at that as well. Played for the San Francisco 49ers. Came off the bench for Joe Montana. But when he got his turn for the 49ers, he was that dude. Retired, I think, with like the highest completion percentage in the history of the league. Drew Brees has since surpassed that, but that was Steve Young before Drew Brees. He could sit in the pocket and throw that thing. 6-time All-Pro like a Dan Marino. 3-time first team like a Dan Marino. Could put that ball on the money, but he could also run and get yardage with his legs. So in the total package, him as an athlete is what separated him to me. He's a 2-time league MVP like I talked about Kurt Warner. He's in that rare class like Kurt Warner, 2-time league MVP and a Super Bowl champion like Kurt Warner, but a 6-time All-Pro like Dan Marino, and he can run the ball, use his legs like a Randall Cunningham. Complete package. In this day and age, Steve Young will probably be one of the best quarterbacks in football. He would definitely excel, and he starts my top 10, and I'll get to the rest of them with the next video. All right, that's all the time I got. Y'all know what it is, and you know what you're looking for. J-Heat Sports Media. Remember to like, subscribe, or hit the bell. Get at me in the comments. Let's go back and forth. What y'all think about this list so far? It's a tough one. I know we getting down to some really, really good quarterbacks. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, at TheVaultJMU414 on Twitter, and of course, what's up TikTok? Holla at y'all next time.